This episode of the Black Girl Boss Podcast is brought to you by FreshBooks. FreshBooks is a super simple invoicing solution that lets you create and send slick, professional-looking invoices in seconds. I personally use FreshBooks in my business to send invoices to my clients, to send recurring invoices to monthly clients. I use it to track my expenses. I actually switched over from using QuickBooks to using FreshBooks. And to be honest, not just because they're a sponsor, but I truly love FreshBooks because it's just super duper easy. It's very user friendly. So I can log on to my FreshBooks dashboard and see exactly what how my business is doing. I can see when my invoices are going to be sent out. I can see what invoices are past due, who I need to follow up with, all of that good stuff. So I love FreshBooks. It allows me, I can take a picture of my receipt, upload it right into FreshBooks, and it'll track all of my expenses for me. And to be honest, my favorite part about FreshBooks though is that if I have a question or if I need help with anything, I can just call and talk to a real person. I know a lot of these invoicing softwares, you got to call and deal with these automated systems. So FreshBooks, somebody picks up super quick and I get to talk to a live person and get help on what I'm looking for. So I definitely suggest that for all of you guys that are trying to get better with your expenses, find a new invoicing solution, or just find a better way to run your business on the back end. Definitely check out FreshBooks for free for 30 days by just going on www.gofreshbooks.com/blackgirlboss and enter Black Girl Boss Podcast in the How Did You Hear About Us section. So one more time, go to www.gofreshbooks.com/blackgirlboss. Let's start the show.
Work hard for what you want in life.
You work hard for what you want in life.
That your word is your bond, that you do what you say you're going to do.
That your word is your bond, and you do what you say.
That you treat people with dignity and respect.
That you treat people with respect.
Reach of your dreams and your willingness to work hard.
The strength of your dreams and your willingness to work for them.
Work hard.
Work hard.
Work hard.
Work hard.
Work hard. Work hard. Work hard.
Hey guys, it's Tatum, and welcome to episode 56 of the Black Girl Boss Podcast. So today, you guys, I want to talk about seasons. And it took me a while to really sit down and do this episode because I knew that seasons was going to be today's topic, but I wanted to kind of figure out how I was going to go about attacking this topic. There's so many things that we can talk about as it relates to seasons. We can talk about seasons in relationships, seasons in friendships, seasons in business. We can talk about seasons from so many different angles, but I decided that today I really wanted to talk about seasons as it relates to being a new entrepreneur, because a lot of you guys who are listening to this podcast are aspiring entrepreneurs. You guys are new entrepreneurs, so you may have an idea that you want to make into a business. You may have a business, but it's still in its very developmental stages. And some of you guys are career women and men as well, but enjoy listening to this podcast too. And I do believe that you guys can get something out of this as well, but I really wanted to talk about seasons from a new entrepreneur's perspective. So I broke it down, and I feel like new entrepreneurs go through 4 different seasons. So I'm going to go through each season and then tell you some things that you should prioritize in that season, as well as some things that you should be careful about or be mindful of in that season. So the first season for new entrepreneurs is oftentimes that season of discovery. It's that season where that light bulb goes off either on a business idea or the light bulb goes off and your circumstances where you come to the decision of becoming an entrepreneur. That's that season of discovering what entrepreneurship is and discovering that that's what you want for your life, or that's what your life is destined to become. It could be that season where you're in your 9 to 5 and you're realizing, oh my goodness, this is not for me. Like, I'm not meant to work for somebody else. It could be that season where you just had a baby and you're looking at your child and you're trying to figure out, like, man, I want to create something that my child can have. Like, I want to create a legacy for my child. It could be that time that light bulb could go off while you're in college and you're like, man, I'm doing all this work to go work for somebody else. Or it could be that time where you're in a senior level role at a Fortune 500 company and you're realizing that you didn't get that promotion. And so you're looking at your career thinking like, man, I've put in all this work for corporate America, and I want something else. I want to put in this work for something for me, something I can leave my kids. So however you come about the decision of entrepreneurship, or the light bulb goes off for you to do something entrepreneurial, then that's when you enter into that season of discovery. For me personally, my season of discovery came right after college, when I realized that I was not meant to work a 9 to 5. Now, I do want to be specific here, because a lot of people think that because you hate your job, you're not meant to work a 9 to 5, or because you don't get along with your boss, or you don't get along with people at work, or you're just lazy, if we're going to call a spade, or you're just lazy and don't want to wake up and go somewhere, that you're not supposed to work a 9 to 5. Like, that's not the same. It's two totally different things to just be a bad employee and to not be meant to work a 9 to 5. When I had 9 to 5s and I worked in corporate America, I was a great employee. I got accolades all the time at work. I accomplished a lot of things at work. I made my companies a lot of money that I worked for. I had a great attitude every day. Everybody loved me. I probably had the most Christmas gifts at the end of the year because of the relationships that I had with people and because I did such great work. So I do want to put that out there. Don't think that because you feel like I'm not meant to work a 9 to 5 that you're supposed to just be this terrible employee. Because I always figure, once it came time for me to hire employees, if I don't want to hire myself, then I need to do something different while I'm in this season of still having a job. So for that, somebody might have needed that's listening. So for you guys that still have jobs and you're working your business on the side, and you know that a 9 to 5 isn't the end goal for you, so you just at work like, whatever, this is temporary. Don't do that. Not because you need to be impressing anybody, or because you're working to get some type of promotion at work, or because you're turning into this corporate person. Don't do it for the sake of, you wouldn't want somebody to do that to you when you get to the point of your hiring. You get to the point that you're hiring employees. So yes, if you don't want to hire yourself, then you need to do some things differently at work. So anyway, this season of discovery, when you find out that you want to start a business, this is a fun season, because then this is the season that doesn't really require much work. This is the season that more so requires, or you more so get into reading a lot of books, or listening to podcasts, or watching things on TV or on YouTube or whatever, just to get an understanding of entrepreneurship or business, or you following people on Instagram that live these glamorous entrepreneurial lifestyles. That's the season that most people are in when they first get their business idea, and that's where a lot of people do when they first get that business idea and decide that they're going to be an entrepreneur. But in this season, I want to point out that it's important, when you figure out when you enter into this season of discovery, that the two things that you really have to prioritize are research and introspection. Now, let's start with research. When you're in this season, you have to prioritize research, because let's just go with statistics. Over 90% of businesses fail within the first year. And just because you start a business does not mean it's going to be successful. Just because you want to be a successful entrepreneur does not mean the business that you start in this season is going to be successful. Now, that's not to say that you won't be a successful entrepreneur. T.D. Jakes said in his book Soar, that we talked about last year, that the business is not the dream. The business is just a vehicle that gets you to that dream. So just because this business that you start may fail, or doesn't mean that you aren't going to be a successful entrepreneur. It just means it wasn't the vehicle to take you there. But you have to know and mitigate that risk of, is this going to be the vehicle to take me there? And the only way that you're going to really do that is through research. So really research your industry, really figure out how your business is going to be set apart from other businesses. What is your unique selling proposition? That's one of the foundational things you need to figure out about your business before you even get started. The problem is people go from idea to launch in 2 days and wonder why they're not successful. It doesn't really work like that. You have to do the groundwork, and a part of that is doing the research and doing the research in the discovery phase. So before you spend the time and the money on the second season that we're going to talk about, you need to really do the research to see if it's worth it. A good example of this is I had said last year sometime that there was a new business that I was going to start in 2019. And the business that I was going to start was with other people. And so I had discovered, we did our research prior to making a decision to start that business. And it was a great business as far as financial goes. My biggest thing was there are so many of that particular business that we were going to start that ours had to be different. I wasn't going to do it at all unless ours had a very distinct, unique selling proposition, because that'll make the marketing easier, as well as we'll be meeting a different need that the other businesses didn't. And so we came up with that before even starting the business. So we already knew, okay, cool, this is our unique selling proposition. This is what we're going to do. This is how much money that we're going to need to start this. All of this came from research. This is how much money we're going to need to start this. This is when we're going to have the money by, ready, break. Like, that was the plan. We're going to start it in 2019. So recently I had saw another business just like that one. Now these are brick and mortar businesses, so it's a little bit different than the coaching or anything that's more digital. So I saw a business that was the same business that we were going to start, and the unique selling proposition was the same. So pretty much somebody did it first. So I called them. I'm like, hey, we need to talk about this because this is already happening under this same unique selling proposition. Are we still going to do this? My vote was no. We don't need to do it, because why spend the time and energy and money doing something that somebody else has already done, and they have the unique selling proposition that we've already come up with? You might as well just go ahead and bow out now before we spend any money and before we spend any more time to this. And so everybody agreed, like, yeah, cool, we're going to cut our losses, keep your eyes open for other opportunities, whatever. That was that. But doing that research early and developing that unique selling proposition early allowed us to, and then seeing that someone else did it, allowed us to really make an informed decision about what it is that we were going to do. Now, I'm a firm believer that if we would have continued to do that anyway, if we would have let our egos get involved and be like, okay, they may be doing it and they may be doing it under this same or from this same angle, but they can't do it like us, so we're going to do it anyway. And for the type of business that we were starting, that just wasn't going to work. At the end of the day, it wouldn't have been a good decision for us to move forward. We would have done this. It would have looked great on Instagram, but it would have probably not been successful, or would have been hard to sustain because it's already being done. And so a lot of you guys may be like, well, what does that mean for me, Tatum? I want to start this business, but there's a lot of people doing it. I want to start, let's say I want to start a boutique, because that's the number one, I think, idea that people have. But I want to start a boutique. But so what does that mean for me? There's a lot of boutiques out there. Should I just not start my business? I'm not telling you to not start your business. I'm telling you to do a lot of research to figure out, is it the best business decision for you to do that? Now, other people doing what you're doing doesn't mean that you can't do it too. That's why unique selling propositions exist. A unique selling proposition is probably my favorite thing to talk about. And it's the first thing that comes to my mind when it comes to any business, because there's never going to be, unless you invent something, there's probably going to be people already doing what you're doing. So you have to figure out, what is it about my business that makes it unique? If I'm starting a boutique, why would people come to my boutique and not somebody else's? What can I offer in my boutique that's different? If I'm selling hair, what is it about my hair that makes people come to me as opposed to somebody else? That unique selling proposition is what's going to make or break you. So it's important that you do that, that you come up with that first in the idea phase of your business, so that once you actually get to the launched part, once you actually get to the point where you're accepting clients and things like that, or accepting orders or whatever it is, whatever your business is, it's easier to sell. You don't have to convince me that I need better skincare products for dry skin specifically, because most products cater to people with oily skin. So me as a person with dry skin, I kind of feel left out. So you developing a skincare line, there are plenty of skincare lines out there, but you developed a skincare line specifically for people with dry skin. So now in all of your marketing, you're specifically talking to me. So now me and all the other dry skin people of America are coming to you as opposed to the other places, because you create something unique for me. Your angle is different. So you're able to reach a more niche demographic. So, yeah, that's why it's important to do the research in this discovery season, so you could figure out if your idea is worth pursuing. I wish I could tell you, oh, you have an idea, go for it. You want to start a business, go. Like, no, if it don't make sense, if you don't have a unique selling proposition that's going to allow you to approach your marketing in a different way that allows you to stand out from your competitors, then you should probably hold off on that until you come up with that. And if you can't come up with that USP, then it's probably not the right business for you. Go back to the drawing board, pray and ask God what direction that he wants you to go into. So yes, in this season of discovery, you have to prioritize doing your research, doing your homework, understanding your industry, understanding what your competitors are doing, so you know how to develop that unique selling proposition. And a great practice in this discovery phase is to do a business plan. Now, I don't think business plans are necessary for businesses. They come into play mostly when you want like investors and things like that, but your Department of Commerce is not asking for a business plan as a prerequisite to starting a business. But business plans are a great practice because it allows you to flesh out all the intimate details of your business that you don't normally think about. So I'm definitely a proponent of having a business plan because of the practice of it. So yes, in that discovery phase, do that research, come up with your unique selling proposition, and also do some introspection. And introspection just means take a look at yourself, because we always talk about how trendy entrepreneurship is and how you can go online and see all these successful people and all of this stuff, all these pretty pictures about the lifestyle. But you got to make sure you're ready to go on this journey to get to the point of having those things. You have to make sure you're ready to go on this journey of being an entrepreneur. A lot of you guys know I'm currently in the process of getting my MBA. And one of the assignments that I had to do recently, I thought was a pretty dope assignment, where we had to set our goals for ourselves for the next, I think it was 5 years. And so I set my goals for my business. I came up with goals for them for my business. And a part of that was we had to do like a gap analysis. So we had to really figure out where we are at as it relates to those goals and where our weaknesses were and how we can strengthen those weaknesses to be able to reach those goals. So for example, one of my goals was to have like a team in my business. And when I was doing the exercise, I realized that there were some qualities of myself that I needed to strengthen in order to handle the team that I was asking for. So I needed to strengthen my trust in other people, because if you don't trust other people to do things, then you're not going to build a successful team, because it's not going to work. Then I'm going to end up doing everything myself anyway, and not as a fault to them, but of a fault to me because of my trust issues. So I'm going to end up doing things anyway. I'm going to end up not building them up the way that I need to. So I realized that there were some areas that I need to strengthen in as a leader in order to be able to build and retain the type of team that I said that I wanted. So I thought that was interesting, because I've thought about that, but there were areas of leadership that I didn't necessarily think about, because even though I have a business, I more so do most of my business myself. So looking ahead 5 years from now, I don't plan on operating my business in the same way. So in order for me to handle that, I got to start developing those skills and strengthening those weaknesses now, so that when those X amount of years come around, I'm prepared for what it is I'm asking for. So this is where introspection comes in for you guys too, who are in this discovery season of getting your feet wet in this entrepreneurial thing. Do some introspection. Are you bad at managing your time? If so, you need to really work on that in order to handle entrepreneurship, because starting out, you're going to probably have to balance your 9 to 5 with your business, and it's not going to work if you don't know how to manage your time. If you are struggling in that area, definitely go back to, I think it was episode 54, the first episode of the year, where we talked about creating that discipline to succeed, to get some tips on how to do that. But that's something you got to ask yourself. Do you know how to handle money? Do you know how to stick to a budget? If you can't stick to a budget in your personal life, then you're probably going to just be spending your business money all willy-nilly as well. So really figuring out, like, okay, let me get stronger in my finances. How are you when it comes to getting things done? Do you make excuses, or do you execute? You really ask yourself these questions. And if you're an excuse maker, figure out how you can get better at being more productive and executing more so than making excuses. These are the things that's going to prepare you for the things that the next season that's coming. Doing that research, coming up with that unique selling proposition for your business, taking an introspective look at yourself and the areas that you need to strengthen to prepare to be a successful entrepreneur. Those are the things that you have to prioritize in that season. Something that you really have to be careful about in that season, the season of discovery, is distractions. Because when you decide that you seriously are going to be an entrepreneur, because people be playing, when you decide that you're seriously going to be an entrepreneur, things are going to shift. Because you have to balance so many things that are going on in your life with that business that you're starting, your time gets little and little. Your time for nonsense, your time for distractions, your time for BS gets smaller and smaller. So but it's also easier for you to get distracted, and you probably don't even realize all of the things that you waste time on now. Like how you when you first wake up, you're scrolling on Instagram for an hour before even getting out the bed. Like, that's an hour that could be allocated somewhere else. Or how you spend so much time talking on the phone with your friends as opposed to working on your business. Or the second somebody sends you a text message, whatever it is that you were doing at that time goes out the window, because now you're zoned in on what's going on in the group chat. So distractions are something that can really knock you off pace when it comes to this season, because you're not used to being disciplined yet. So it's a lot easier for you to get distracted. And one thing I've also learned is distraction is one of the tools of the devil to keep you from the promises that God has for you. Somebody once told me, if the devil can't destroy you, then he's going to distract you. And I really take that to heart. So even for myself, if I find myself being very not as productive as normal, or if I find myself just getting caught up in frivolous things or getting distracted, then I'm like, oh, no, the devil think he about to play me. I need to get back on my stuff. Like, that's something I have to really tell myself too. So be careful of those distractions. And to be real, like, a lot of people, I talk about skipping steps a lot because so many people do it. When you are first in this discovery phase and you're building your business, you don't need to be worried about like how to make your Instagram pretty. You should probably just delete your social media altogether and focus on the foundation of your business. There's so much that needs to happen before you even get to the point of being on social media marketing your business. There's so much that needs to happen. And social media is such a distraction. You get caught up scrolling and looking at somebody else. I say it all the time, like, don't compare your chapter 3 to somebody else's chapter 30. But social media, it gets you caught up in that. Or you looking and you see somebody selling a course on how to get 100 followers today, or how to turn your likes to sales or whatever. Like, all of that stuff is valuable, but not right now. You know what I mean? You skipping steps. Worry about your unique selling proposition first, because you might not even need to be on Instagram depending on your business. You know what I mean? Or worry about fixing those things within yourself to get you ready for what you're about to get into in the entrepreneur lifestyle before you're even on there. So if I was you guys and I was in this discovery phase of or this discovery season, just get rid of social media altogether and focus on the things that we talked about, so that by the time you get back on, you're more prepared, you're less distracted, you're less likely to get caught up in things that will get you caught up now. And I made a note on here, and in this season of discovery, it's important to note that everybody isn't going to understand what you're doing, but just do it anyway and forget them. You know, my favorite quote, y'all gonna hear me say it forever, is don't listen to anybody, everybody's scared. Jay-Z said that. And when you start making these decisions, when you start turning down social invites because you're building a business, people ain't gonna really like that. It's cute to say you're an entrepreneur until it's time to make sacrifices. Because when them sacrifices come, that's when you find out like who's really about this life and who's not. And when you start making those sacrifices, or you start moving a little bit differently, you start figuring out who's really your friends and who's not, who really only cares about you when it's time to turn up, and who really cares about you fulfilling your dreams. I think it's the same thing as when you decide to live your life for God and you're not doing the things that you used to do. You're not going to the club no more. You're not turning up no more. You ain't cussing people out no more. You're not rolling up on your girl with your girls. You're not rolling up with your girl to her man's house no more, or you're not fighting no more. When you decide to change certain things and live for God, people don't like that. You know what I mean? Everybody doesn't understand that. And it can be very lonely. It's the same thing when it comes to business. It can be very lonely. You know, everybody will come to your launch party and they won't spend no money though, but everybody will come to your launch party and be all excited about your business and saying congratulations. But when you going through it, when you ain't had a sale in 3 weeks and you trying to figure out, oh God, like, I don't know if this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And you try to call that person and you can't, you know, everybody's just really not going to understand what you're doing. So it's important in this phase as you transition into being an entrepreneur and building a business, building a legacy, whatever your motivation is, that you understand that sometimes you have to go through it alone. And if you're not comfortable being alone, then that's one of the things that you need to work on prior to entering into this lifestyle. Be comfortable being alone. You're not going to be alone forever. You know, pray and ask God to send people into your life who understand, or send people into your life who are entrepreneurs as well. But be comfortable being alone, because it's going to require that of you sometimes. Okay, so that brings me to the next season of entrepreneurship, of new entrepreneurship, which is the trenches. And boy, I know the trenches all too well. The trenches is when you like looking crazy. The trenches is when you wake up, your hair all over the place, your eyes bloodshot red, you got a migraine because you ain't been sleeping. The times you are asleep, you dreaming about what's going on in your business. You wake up, you just looking through your planner. You got all these goals you want to meet. You got these people you meeting up with. You're doing a lot, and you don't necessarily see the result of it. That's the trenches, where you're trying out different things to see if this marketing strategy works, and then it doesn't. So you got to switch it up. And then you try another marketing strategy, like, oh, that worked, so let me keep doing that. Okay, so how am I going to do this? It's when you really figuring it out. The trenches is the trenches is what we talk about every week. The trenches was really where me and Milan's businesses both were last year. The trenches is the most difficult part of entrepreneurship, but it is the most important, because the trenches is where you learn so much about your business, where you learn so much about yourself. The trenches is what separates the real, or who comes out of the trenches is what separates the real from the people that's playing. The trenches are a serious season, and the trenches is not to be underestimated. And a lot of y'all like, yes, because y'all know what the trenches is like. The trenches is what you've been in, and you determined to get out of it in 2018. You know what I'm saying? Though the trenches is serious, because that's when you start second guessing yourself. That's when you asking God, like, God, is this really for me? I'm not seeing the results. I'm not making no money. I'm doing all of this stuff. I'm taking all of these courses. Like, what is going on? The trenches is like, oh my God. Like, seriously, the trenches are man, yeah, I'm getting passionate about the trenches because it is so freaking real. But it is so necessary. I went through I kind of went through two periods of the trenches. As you guys know, my first business was my youth program. And I would like to think the trenches for that, it definitely didn't compare to my 2017 trenches, but the trenches for that was more so in 2016. When I was out of my discovery phase. I hired a business coach. I was growing my youth program business, and I was just like, this is a lot. Like, I was going to work. I know because I'm self-employed now, I don't talk as much about that time of having a job. So forgive me, you guys, for I guess kind of not speaking on that season as much. But that season of being in the trenches was serious, because like I told y'all before, I would wake up early, work on my business. I would go to work. I would leave work. My youth program was an after school program provider in my community. So I would leave work. I would go facilitate the program at the school. I would leave the school and go home and then work on my business some more. And then because I left, my little deal I made with my boss at my job was on Thursdays was when I did the program. Thursdays, I would leave work early, but I would make myself available in the evening for anything I might have missed. So that was our deal. So after I left the school, I would go home, but I would still be online for work just to kind of catch up on anything that I missed out on during that transit period, or during that time where I was working, doing the program or driving to the program or whatever. And I will also work a little bit more as well, because I knew that my boss was kind of helping me out as far as let me leave work early on Thursdays or telework more often so that I can do my youth program. So I would work a lot. So I would leave from the school and come back home and log in on my computer. And then the next day, or there might be days where I would leave the school and go to the buildings that I was cleaning in order to pay for my business coach and to fund things in my business. So I would go from the school to the building and then come home and log on for work. Like, the trenches was serious for me. My money was super funny. Like, I was cleaning those buildings because I needed the money, but I was still not doing much as far as my finances went. Like, I was still eating spaghetti all the time, or taking PB&Js to work to eat for lunch, or doing favors for people at work so that they can buy me lunch. Like, it was real, figuring out, like, I'm working so hard. I'm doing all of this. Like, when am I going to be able to reach my dream of leaving my job? Like, it seemed like it's never going to happen for me to leave my job with what's going on right here. That was a serious time in my entrepreneurial journey, because it was so mentally taxing during that time, because I was just doing so much. You know what I mean? A lot of you guys are in that position as well. You feel like you're doing so much, like you're working on your business, you're working your 9 to 5, you there for your friends, you there for your family, you doing all of this, but you seem like you're not getting anywhere. And you have to understand that that's just a part of being in the trenches. I'm sorry that I can't soften it up more than that. But that's just a part of being in the trenches, and it is going to work out. It's important that you don't give up, because there is light at the end of the tunnel. There's so many lessons that you learn in the trenches that are just necessary. One of my biggest lessons during that time of working my 9 to 5 with my business and cleaning buildings and doing all that stuff was time management. So that when all of those things were eliminated, I could still run my schedule like that. I could still schedule in, I could still run my business on a tight schedule. Because a lot of people think that if you eliminate the 9 to 5, then all of a sudden you're going to be productive. That's not how that works. Because time was literally of the essence for me in that season. I now know how to schedule myself to where I'm getting stuff done. Because money was so tight in that season, I'm now able to look at my finances and be like, do you really need that? Or can you give that up? Or look at my business expenses and be like, I can get rid of that. Or figuring out ways around things. Like, when the power of broke is real. That's a book by Damon John I always talk about. In that book, he says how when you have limited resources is when you're the most creative. So that's a lot of times the beauty of being in the trenches is how you're able to get creative and figure things out, because that's the only option that you have. So for you guys who are in the trenches right now, you want to be self-employed, but you just don't see it. Don't give up, because it's going to happen. Another season of me being in the trenches, that was just the trenches with my youth program before I left my 9 to 5. It got even realer when I left my 9 to 5. Oh God, y'all, it was serious. And the thing about that was I was growing in my relationship with God too. So me and God was cool in 2016. Like, I prayed, I went to church every week, but that relationship, I tried to watch my habits, not do too much sinning during that year. But it wasn't until 2017 where my relationship with God, I really got serious with it. And so the second phase of my trenches came when I left my job. Now, I left my job because I heard God tell me it was time to leave. And I've told y'all the story before about how I thought that, yes, I've been going through all this. I've been working with my coach for this long. I done wrote out my resignation letter. I've been reading it every day for motivation. I've been doing all this stuff. Like, yes, it's time for me to go. It's about to take off now. I'm good. And that's not what happened. And that was also when I was making a transition from being from doing my youth program to doing the business coaching program, as well as this podcast. So in that season, what God was trying to do with me was humble me. God had to really break me down so that he can build me up. Now, looking back, I can see that. But in it was like, man, what is going on here? Is this really for me? I'm doubting myself. Migraines every single day. I'm low key. I was probably close to being depressed. I don't want to claim that, but I was just going through it though. Excuse me, guys. I was really going through it in that time, because it's God, I'm working every day, because now it's different. Now, because I was at home every day, my entire day was dedicated to my business. So I'm really working 12 plus hours a day on my business, and not necessarily seeing the fruits of that labor at that time. It was so mentally taxing. And so it was that version of the trenches for me was even worse, because I didn't have the 9 to 5 check coming in every 2 weeks. That's a part that a lot of people aren't grateful for when they're in that season of balancing a 9 to 5 with their business. You got the luxury of a check every 2 weeks. Try eliminating that and working hard and you not seeing the results of your labor when money is going out, but money is not coming in. That is serious. That's a different level of pressure. So being in the trenches for me in that time was just ridiculous. But God had to do that because he had to show me who my blessings were coming from. He had to strengthen my relationship with him in order to bless me with my next season. In order to give me the fruits of my labor, he had to make sure that I wasn't going to squander. And that's why I tell you guys, the difference between where you're at now and where you want to be is your relationship with God, period. It's not the strategy. It's not what course you're going to buy. It's not what coach you hire. It's your relationship with God, because that's what it was for me. And that's what it's been for so many people that I've seen. I'll ask people like, have you fasted before? You know, of course, in 2017 is when I started fasting as well. I'll ask people like, have you fasted? You know, the Bible says some things only come through fasting and prayer. Have you fasted? And some people will be like, no, you know, or I'll tell them I fast from food every week, and they'd be like, oh, I can't go all day without eating. And in my mind, I'm like, what if God said, oh, I can't give her $1 million. Oh, cause she won't even turn down her plate for 12 hours for me. Like, I'm not going to bless her with being a full-time entrepreneur. She can't even spend 10 minutes a day, talking to me. She won't even sit down long enough for me to tell her how she's going to become self-employed. You know, or I can't bless her with all of these clients or this celebrity clientele, because she won't even take the time to she values food more than she values obviously her success, because she's not even willing to turn down her plate for 12 hours for me. You know what I mean? That's how I had to look at things. Like, what was I really willing to do in order to get to where I was trying to go in those trenches? Like, I was willing to hire my business coach. I was willing to read all of these books. I was willing to take these courses. I was willing to get these certification. I was willing to do all of these things. But for some reason, when it came to my relationship with God, that's when it was like, oh, hold on now. You know? And that's what happens with a lot of people. So God had to fix that part of me before he can give me any of the success I was looking for. And so a lot of times in those trenches is when you have to strengthen your relationship with God as well. And to be honest, in those trenches, all you got is God, because it gets real. It gets so real. Like, you don't have a choice but to really go to God, because it's just, the struggle is just overwhelming. It's not fun. It's not sexy. It's not a cute picture to put online. It's none of that. It's all of those things that go on that people can't see. And it's also the season that builds character. It's the season that prepares you to be able to handle what's coming next. It's that season that pressure that creates the diamond in you. So it's important not to skip the trenches, and it's important to embrace the trenches and not have a pessimistic mindset about the trenches, because we all need that. So in this season, you guys, it's important that you prioritize your mindset. Because it's so difficult, your mindset will be the thing that takes you over the edge. So it's important while you're in the trenches to develop that mindset, for you to write down your wins of the week, or send them to us, send them to me, so that I can be able to shout you out on the podcast. It's important that you prioritize that. It's important that you, put your testimonial somewhere that you can see it, so you're reminded of the good things that you're doing. Look at all the things and make note of all the things that you've been able to accomplish. Read books, pay and listen to music, watch things that feed that positivity, or feed that optimism, or feed whatever it is that you need to feed to keep your mindset right, so that you can work through these trenches. Also, while you're in the trenches, prioritize doing things the right way. We had a whole episode on don't build sandcastles, so go back and listen to that. But it's important that you do things the right way, because there are so many people who reach out, people that I talk to who ask me questions or who want to hire me or something like that. And I don't really understand how you skip so many steps. Like, people will be like, let's see. Hey, I have a graphic design company. I'm looking for a coach for whatever reason. I'm like, okay, cool. So then I'll ask questions like, have you legally formed or they'll tell me, I have a graphic design business. Right now I have about 2 clients, and I'm looking to bring on about 6 more with a coach. I'm like, okay, cool. So is your business formed legally? Oh, I haven't done that yet. Okay. Do you have, your tax ID number? Like, this is entry level stuff. Do you have your tax ID number? Oh no, I don't have that yet either. Well, you taking clients, but you don't have a tax ID number. Like, how are they paying you? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is going on here? These are skips. These are steps that people skip, and it makes no sense, because if people have this idea where you can just go from, well, people have this perception that you can just go from idea to launch and woohoo, you're successful. That's not how it works. Like, there's foundations that you have to build. You know, what is the process of acquiring a client? What does your sales funnel look like? What does your marketing strategy look like to get people into your sales funnel? What's the process? You know, how much does it cost for you to acquire a client? How much are you selling your product for or service for? What's your profit margin in that? You know, who do you need to help execute whatever it is, or what type of team members do you need to help execute whatever it is that you're doing? Like, these are the things that don't sound sexy or don't look sexy, so people don't talk about it enough. And these are the important things. So again, go back and listen to that Don't Build Sandcastles episode. But it's important that while you're in the trenches, you're building these things out, so that when the promise come, when the clients come, when the money comes, it's smooth sailing. You know exactly what it is that you're doing. Don't ask God for something you're not prepared to receive. And in the trenches is when you're really doing that prepping in your business. And also in the trenches is important that you prioritize execution over excuses. We had an episode on that too. So go back and listen to that. Because mindset is so important in this season. Your mindset will have you making excuses. I can't talk today. Your mindset will have you making excuses. So you have to definitely be intentional about executing in this phase or in this season. And one thing that you have to really be careful about when you're in the season of the trenches is thinking that your business, your life, or your entrepreneurial journey is some type of race. It's not a race at all. You know, your trenches can be 1 year, it can be 6 months, it can be 3 years, it can be 5 years, it can be 10 years. It really doesn't matter, because everybody's entrepreneurial journey is unique to them. You know, God may need to do some things within you for those 10 years, you know, but it doesn't matter as long as you're making progress. So yeah, you guys, it's not a race. Don't think that, and the reason why people think it should be a race is pretty much because somebody's always selling you something of, let's say, how to launch your business in 12 months or less, or how to secure your first client within 30 days of launching. There's always a time frame attached to some type of marketing strategy for people who have those type of businesses. I know because I've done it, and I understand why they do that from a business owner standpoint. But from a consumer standpoint, or putting myself in the shoes of you guys, don't let that make you think you have to do something within that time frame. You know, we're programmed for instant gratification. We always want something quick. So because of that, hopping into my marketer shoes, because as humans or as consumers, we always want something fast, it makes sense for the creators or the business owners to market to you in a way that makes you think you're going to accomplish something quick. That makes sense. That's good marketing. However, don't let that get into your psyche so much so that you think that if you don't do something within a year, then you're some type of failure, because that's not what it is. You know, so again, and when you're in the trenches, because the struggle is so real in the trenches, it'll have you thinking that. But it's important that you understand that this is my race. I'm going to put one foot before the other. I'm going to do things correctly. I'm going to listen to God. I'm going to move how he says move in this time. And if it takes me 5 years, I'm okay with that, because I know that my success is going to be done the right way, as opposed to thinking that if it doesn't happen in 5 weeks, that I'm some type of failure. And also, I had an item to note for the trenches is it's okay to change your mind. It is 100% okay to change your mind. If you're in the trenches and you doing all of this stuff, you like, okay, Tatum, I got my mindset together. I'm doing things right. I'm building up the process, the people, the profit in my business. I'm doing all of this. But in all of this, I realize I don't want to do this. That's okay. It's okay for you to change your mind, for you to say, I don't want to do this. I want to do something else. It's 100% okay. So for the person who is in that position, I'm giving you permission to go ahead and change your mind. It's your life. It's not about pleasing the people who are, criticizing your life. It's about your life. What makes you happy? It's 100% about you. And we just get really caught up and what other people think. It's not about what other people think. It's about us. Because in those trenches, you in those trenches by yourself with the people that you love, the people closest to you, but you are not in those trenches with people that's online. You really, even if you are in those trenches with people that you love, it still doesn't matter what they want. It's about what you want. A good example of this is when I was doing my youth program, making a decision that wasn't going to be the vehicle that took me to the dream. It was like, as I was doing it and I was successful at it, I realized that I don't want to do this full time. I don't want to, because of all the nuances that goes along with building that type of business. That's not something I want to do. I didn't want to deal with school systems all the time because school systems are cheap. It's politics that go into it. I didn't want to deal with parents all the time because I feel that parents prioritize everything but the development of healthy character, or healthy relationships or healthy self-esteem and things like that in their kids. So I knew that, but because of those things and other factors, I did not want that vehicle to be the thing that took me to the dream. So I had to pack up my stuff, get off of it, and get on the next one. So I had to change my mind. And changing my mind has been very great for me. You know what I'm saying? Changing my mind has allowed me to live my dreams. It's allowed me to build a platform like this podcast and talk to thousands of you guys all over the world. It's giving me changing my mind has given me the opportunity to have a successful coaching business. Changing my mind has given me the opportunity to live my dream on a full-time basis. Changing my mind worked out. And it's okay for you to change your mind. What you start don't have to be the thing that you stick with 24/7. You can make adjustments. It's your life. Just make sure that you make informed decisions. Make sure that when you get to that point that you go back to the things that you did in your discovery season, which is the research and the introspection. Make sure you go back to that. But it's okay to change your mind. Okay, so then the next season I wanted to talk about is the season of becoming. The season of becoming is when you finally out those trenches. It's when you are everything that you've worked so hard for is starting to show. It's that season where it's like, oh man, okay, God, I see what you were doing there. That's the season of becoming. So for me, the fourth quarter of 2017 was my season of becoming. I was deep in the trenches from 2016, quarter one, 2016, up until, matter of fact, I'll say my season of becoming was, started in like third quarter of 2017. Fourth quarter was when it really peaked. But third quarter of 2017 is when I transitioned from the trenches to my season of becoming. And that's when I started getting clients, my income increased. This podcast was doing extremely and it still is, but the podcast was just doing even better than it had been doing before. I was just seeing the results of everything that I worked so hard for in the trenches. My relationship was going so well. I had my mastermind group. I had people in my life who understood what was going on. Everything was going well. I was getting amazing speaking engagements. I was able to travel and actually take time off from my business for myself. The season of becoming was just refreshing. It was like, I'm doing Bikram hot yoga right now. So it was like that first drink of cold water after a 90-minute long hot yoga session. It was just so refreshing. And it made the trenches worth it. There is another season that I believe that I'm going to enter into in 2018 that I'm not in yet. And I'm sure that season is going to be even more refreshing. But this season of becoming is just when you're like, okay, God, when you can really take a exhale. And in this season, it's important for you guys to prioritize celebrating your wins and looking at how far you've come. In the trenches season, you celebrate your wins to keep your mindset on track. But the season of becoming is really when that gratefulness comes in, because you're able to kind of look like, wow, I accomplished this, I accomplished that. And it's important too that we don't get so caught up in the grind that we don't come up for air and see when we're actually in that season of becoming. Because a lot of us are in that season, we just don't realize it because we so used to the war that we're in when we're in the trenches. We're so used to that constant state of hustle and grind and all of that stuff that happens in the trenches that we don't realize that we've actually become what it is that we were working so hard for. So it's important in that season of becoming to celebrate your wins and look at how far you've come. And in this season of becoming as well, you have to be careful of people. If there's anything that I've learned in this season and even in previous season, is that people will see your potential more than you. Other people will sniff out your potential more than you. And other people will see like, oh, she's going to be successful, so let me latch on to her. Let me be her friend. Even when you don't see it, you might still be in the trenches, so you're totally oblivious to what's going on. But other people see that. Like, I think about this show that I caught on TV called Wags that comes on E. And it was this girl on there, and she was single, but she only dated athletes. So like she could sniff out an athlete. Like it was to the point where she went on like a date with this guy, and she wanted to play ping pong so that she could kind of see how athletic he was, because it was that serious that she was in a relationship with an athlete. And I thought that was crazy, but it's the same thing when it comes to you and the anointing that's on your life. Other people can sniff that out too. Those users, those scammers, those people that just want to be connected to you for a come up, they sniff that out too. So it's important when you're in all of these seasons, really to be mindful of people and pray and really ask God for a heightened discernment so you're able to sniff that out. Like I'm so grateful to God for discernment, because I'll sniff out a user in a heartbeat. And I'm also very guarded when it comes to who I let into my who I'm vulnerable with and who I really let into my circle. Like I'm really like team no new friends right now, because it's just important for me to keep my solid core group around me. And when it comes to new people, I'm not saying I'm not open to making new friends, but I'm just real cautious. I need to kind of see who you are before I let you into my life past something professional. So it's definitely important, you guys, that we keep our discernment at an all-time high and really pray to God to heighten that in all of our seasons, really. And the last season that I wanted to talk about is the season of the promised land. So when you've already gone through that season of discovery, you know what you're doing, you know what you want to accomplish with your business, you did the work on yourself, you developed that unique selling proposition in your business, you entered into that season of the trenches where you're just working to get to that point. You're developing the people and the process and the profit in your business, you're developing the marketing strategies, you're developing the sales funnel. You may even hire a business coach in that time so that you can work with someone who's been where you are. And then you enter into that season of becoming, where it's like, whew, I've been running in these trenches for so long. I didn't realize how far I've come. I've been grinding so much. I didn't even realize how much I've accomplished. And then you walk into the season of that promised land, where it's like, wow, this is what you were trying to do, God. Like, wow, this is why you had me, on my face crying and praying and fasting for so long. This is why you had me stop drinking. This is why you had me stop having sex. This is why you had me do all these things, because of this. That's that promised land. And I'm not in it yet. I truly believe that my promised land season is 2018, because of the things that God has showed me. But yeah, that's a great season as well. And I think the season of becoming and the promised land are so beautiful that they make the trenches in the season of becoming worth it. So it's important that you don't skip those seasons, because they really, really build character. And so for you guys, if you may already be in a season of becoming and looking to walk into the promised land. So it's important in that season that you prioritize understanding who got you there. You're not self-made, you're God-made. You know what I mean? You're not self anything. So it's important that you really, really say goodbye to yourself and allow God to live on the inside of you, so that you can really walk into that promised land. And it's important to be careful of ego and greed. And I do think ego and greed are really rooted in selfishness. The reason why people are greedy, the reason why people have such a big ego is because they think they have something to do with their success. And the reason why I talk about God so much in this podcast, the reason why God is going to be a bigger part of this podcast, is because I understand that this is his doing. You know, he's the reason I'm in the season I'm in right now. He's the reason why I'm going to enter into an even better season. And I'm going to keep telling y'all about him, because you're going to understand that I may be good at what I do, but I'm excellent because of God, period. So that wraps up what I wanted to talk about with the seasons. Feel free to tweet us at BGB Podcast, or tweet me at Tatum Tamia, comment on our Instagram at Black Girl Bosses, or send me a message or whatever at Tatum Tamia. Let me know what you think about the show or what you think about the seasons, what season you're in, etc. And I'll be back with questions. And I'm back with questions. If you guys want to ask a question to be answered on the show, go to www.blackgirlbosses.com, click on the Ask a Boss tab, and you can submit your questions there. So this question says, "Hey Tatum, I listened to your podcast and I love it. My best friend and I are going to open an online clothing store, and we are currently working on finding a manufacturer. I know that in the podcast you and Milan talked about finding your niche first / your target audience, and I'm thinking we should create a survey before we actually buy items to find our target audience and what they like. But she thinks that we should wait to do that so we can attach the survey to their purchase email. Can I have your insight, please?" Okay, first of all, before developing your target audience, I think that you should, before developing your target audience, you need to find your unique selling proposition. I talked about this a lot during this episode, but figure out what makes, and it's funny because I really used a boutique as an example before reading this question, but make sure that you figure out what makes your clothing store different from everybody else. Like, what is it? Why are your clothes different? It has to be more than just the clothes. You know, I've seen the same clothes on different boutiques. So what makes your boutique different from the others? Is it the convenience? Is it the quality for the price? Is it like, what really is it? So figure that out first. And then after you do that, then you really focus in on the target audience that needs that specific unique selling proposition. Because what happens is, if you do it backwards, if you do your target audience before you do your unique selling proposition, then you may end up selling them something that they don't need when you start with or trying to sell them something that they don't need. So your business at the end of the day is supposed to solve a need. And if the need is not there, you're going to have to work 10 times as hard to convince them why they need to buy it. So, and with this type of business, it's supposed to be passive. You know what I mean? This is a clothing product-based business. So it's important that you develop the unique selling proposition first, because then your target audience is going to come from that. So using my same example from the beginning of the show, if you are starting, let's say, a skincare brand, and you say you want your target audience to be millennial Black women, okay, that's still broad. And who says that all millennial Black women need what you're offering? So if you start with the unique selling proposition instead, and you say, I'm going to start I'm going to start a skincare business that caters towards people with dry skin, then your target audience is going to come from that. It's going to come from is going to become people with dry skin, and you can niche it down more than that if you want to. But that's so specific as far as the need goes, then you should be fine. And then you can start marketing to people with dry skin. So for your clothes, what is the unique selling proposition? There's so many boutiques out there. So really figure that out first. Your homegirl is saying that you should attach the survey to their purchase email, but that's kind of super backwards, because how are you gonna know who to sell to? Like, who's going to purchase to be able to take the survey? That doesn't even make sense. So definitely take heed to what I said. That's my insight, and let me know if you have any follow-up questions. The next question says, love the podcast and listen as much as possible. I know it's been briefly discussed before, but would love to hear more of your thoughts on the concept of support. Recently, I had a conversation with someone who was saying they don't expect their friends to support them in their endeavors or projects because what they might be doing might not align with them. Yet on the opposite end, it's the concept that your friends should be your biggest supporters, and you should surround yourself with people who are going to support you and your brand. Just curious on advice regarding navigating that. So I actually did respond to this person, but Milan and I had talked about this because we actually disagreed on this. I agree with the person that she was talking to as far as I don't think my friends need to be buying stuff from my business or anything like that in order to show me support. I don't require that from them. My idea of support is be my bridesmaid in my wedding. Come, let's go to lunch. If I'm having a hard day, be there for me. If I accomplish something, let's go out and celebrate. I don't expect my friends to be anything more than my friends. Just because I started a business doesn't mean that they now need to be ambassadors for that business. That's not what I look for in my friends. But it all depends on you. I think that this is very situational, because the same thing, like I might look for certain things in a romantic relationship that other people may not look for. So it totally depends on you and what you need from your friends. But I do think it's unfair to ask your friends to just be buying all your stuff and coming to all your events or posting everything that you post. That's not their job. They're not your employees. And I think it's very much so unfair to ask them to do that. Now, if they do it on their own, that's great. But to hold that against them if they don't, I don't know. I don't really think that that's fair. I think that you should, if you're looking for friends who are more so like-minded, because what a lot of people do is they try to make their friends entrepreneurs who aren't entrepreneurs. Just because they decided to start a business, now you want your friends to do it, or you want your friends to come with you to all these networking events, or you want your friends to come to all your events or whatever. That's not what they do, so I would just pray and ask God to send people in your life who are like-minded, and you guys can support each other in that way. But don't hold that against your friends, because they didn't sign up to be your business brand ambassador. But if it's something that's important to you, because this is very much so depending on what you need, then talk to them about it. You know what I mean? But my perspective is that I just need my friends to be my friends, and that's it. Next question says, what's your favorite thing about being a Black girl boss? Man, my favorite thing, to be honest, is just the freedom of my time. Just the freedom to do what I want with my life. Like, I love it. I love not having that feeling of, like, today is Martin Luther King Day. So I'm working today. It ain't really no holiday for me, but some people live for these type of days because they get a day off of work. Or when you're coming to the end of a vacation, you're like, I'm so salty, I got to go back to work on Monday. I don't have that feeling. It's the freedom of my time, the freedom to know that my business is mine, the freedom to know that when I have kids, I can leave them something, the freedom to know that my success is in me and God's hands. You know what I mean? It's not, I don't have to sell a boss on why I need to get a raise or anything like that. That's my favorite thing, to be honest. The freedom to just be who God called me to be, and all of that entails, without the restrictions of a job. That's the first thing. And the second thing is the people that I'm able to help. To watch people's businesses grow and become successful as a result of working with me is amazing. You know what I mean? Like, the fact that people listen to this podcast and your lives are able to be positively impacted is so surreal to me. So aside from the freedom of my time, just the results of the calling on my life, or the results of other people's lives because of my decision to become a Black girl boss, is just it's the most amazing feeling in the world. Okay. Somebody asked a question. Can't find it. Will there ever be a Black girl boss brunch? Nope. I have absolutely no desire to do a brunch. Milan has a great brunch. It's called the Entrepreneurship brunch. It's in March. It's in Atlanta. So if you guys are in Atlanta, definitely go to entrepreneurshers.com or go to the Milan Mobley on Instagram. She posts stuff on there about it. So go to her brunch. I think there are enough brunches out there. I'm good on doing my own brunch. I don't see the point. Somebody said, I'm sad Milan moved to Atlanta. You all work so well together. Will you and Milan work on future projects together? Well, Milan's going to be a bridesmaid in my wedding, so we're working on that project together. Me getting married. But yeah, we work well together, but Milan and I are friends. You know what I mean? It's not like she's moving out of my life. You know what I mean? You guys will see more of us on social media and stuff like that because we do have an actual relationship. But as far as like future projects, it depends. It just all has to make sense. If it makes sense, both SENSE as well as CENTS, then I'm all for it. But if not, no. It just all depends. It depends on where the wind blows for that, or what God wants us to do in the future. And then the last question, how do you get the strength to dress up / put on clothes when you've been working all night on your brand and your business? How do you How do you manage / allocate your time to build your business? I'm always tired. So we talked about this on episode 54. So I suggest going to episode 54 about developing the discipline to succeed. Finding the strength to dress up. To be honest, I work from home a lot. So me putting on clothes and all of that requires nothing. You know, I work mostly in like sweats and stuff like that. So I don't have to, but when I was still working my 9 to 5 and I had to get dressed for work, it's all about preparation. You know, I will wear weaves a lot because it requires less work to do my hair. I didn't really wear that much makeup to work, so I didn't have to worry about all of that. But I would like prepare my outfits at night. So ironing my clothes, putting my clothes out, and things like that. So when I got up, all I had to do was really get dressed. I didn't have to think about what I was going to wear and try it on, like, oh, that don't look right. You know, all of that little girl stuff, that little girly stuff that we do that takes time. I didn't have to do that. And then also, I understand the thing of always being tired, but you have to figure out how to function in that tiredness, how to not look like you're tired, how to still show up and show out while being tired. So you have to find whatever that inner motivator is for you to be able to get it done anyway. And also a lot of times being tired, it derives from not taking care of ourselves. So you talking about being up, working all night on your brand and on your business. I never did that. I would never sacrifice my sleep for anything because one, I'm not a nice person when I don't get sleep. So we just gonna start there. So I would really make sure when I was budgeting my time that I included my 8 hours. I really only need 6, but I budgeted my 6 hours of sleep. So it's important that you do that because you need that time to really recharge so that you can wake up and accomplish everything that you have to do that day. So I would challenge you to really look at everything you spending time on, put sleep back into the equation and take away time from other things because you need to sleep. And also figure out like, what do you need to motivate you? Do you need to create, like I used to have like a digital vision board to where it was an app. I forgot the name of it, but it was an app that I created a vision board on, and it was the background on my phone. So whenever I looked at my phone, I knew what I was working towards. Whenever I listened to a podcast, it was something that inspired me to get back to work. So really figure out how you can create that those things to really maintain your motivation, and more importantly, how you can be more disciplined so that you're able to get things done regardless. So go back to episode 54. We really went into detail about that, and set your cute clothes out the night before so you ain't got to think about it. So yeah, you guys, so that's it for the questions. I'm going to take a quick break and be back with the wins of the week.
All I do is win, no matter what. Got money on my...
All right, y'all. So let's get to these wins of the week. I hope y'all like my background music. I feel like I've been talking for so long that I really wanted to turn up at the end of the podcast while we're celebrating all the amazing things that you guys are out there doing. So the first win of the week comes from Connecting Girlfriends. She said that they had their Ladies and Lemonade Girl Boss Mixer on January 6th in ATL. She said that it was a sold out event of 30 people and it was amazing. The panelists and the CEO of Embrace Me Naturally really inspired individuals to brand their business. So congrats to you for an amazing event. She's one of our Black Girl Boss OGs who's been supporting us from day one. So I appreciate you, and I'm so excited about all the amazing things that's happening in your business. So next, this one comes from Dynasty by Brittany. She says that she relaunched her clothing brand, Dynasty by Brittany. All these exclamation points, so she's excited. She says that she spent the last 6 months truly working on creating a foundation so that her brand can be sustainable, and she's never felt so prepared for something in her life. I think that's amazing, and that's just a perfect example of what I talked about, what we've talked about on this show, of not building sandcastles. So shout out to you, Brittany, for spending that time really developing those aspects of your brand. And I'm excited for all the amazing things that you have to come in your business. She's another one of our Black Girl Boss OGs who's been supporting us from the beginning. So last win of the week is that it's only the second day of the year and I've achieved 2 goals that I really didn't think I would have accomplished this early. Okay, first, I own my own domain name, so www.skinflintcloset.com is officially mine. Whoop, 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 whoop. Secondly, I've already been invited to a vendor event. It's not much, but it's a start into the year. I can already see if I continue to work hard, I will achieve everything. Yes, girl. There's no such thing as a small win. Definitely celebrate every step of the way because you deserve it, and it's definitely important to celebrate each milestone along the way. So shout out to all of you guys. If you want to submit your win of the week, go to www.blackgirlbosses.com. Click the tab wins of the week and shoot me an email so I can shout you out on the show. Oh, so I guess I should say my wins. So a win is the podcast name will be different very soon. I changed the name. I know what the name is. Our ambassadors know what the name is. So I'm going to let you guys in on what it is very soon. I finished my first physical product. So it's in the design phases right now. But I'm done as far as the content goes. So I'm excited. I have a goal to get that out by the end of the month. So I'm excited to show you guys what God has me working on, because this is definitely not my idea. And the last thing is I completed my first 2 days of my personal yoga challenge. So I challenged myself to do Bikram yoga for 30 days straight. So when I wrote this, I had went for maybe like 4 days consecutively, but I didn't go this weekend, so I kind of fell off my own challenge. But it's still a win because I was able to do it consistently. I'm starting back up today. I love hot yoga. Like, it's been so amazing. It makes me feel so good. So I'm proud of myself for sitting in that hot room every day for 90 minutes. I know y'all that are the Black Girl Boss OGs missed that yes button. So as we wrap up the show, I'm going to end the show with the yes for everybody and all of your wins so far in the first few weeks of 2018.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Talk to you guys next week.